After winning just 11 games from 2019 to 2021, Syracuse bounced back with 7 wins in 2022 for their first winning season since 2018. Now the question is, can the Orange continue that success and make back-to-back bowl games for the first time since 2012 and 2013? That's the question we're going to answer today. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 5 years. So if you want guaranteed winning record, guaranteed money right back in your pocket, and the best customer service that any handicapper in the country is going to give you, this is the place for you. Again, it's one of the lowest prices in the country for a full year-long subscription. Go sign up for those picks today. Check out our Patreon account for exclusive college football content year-round as well, including our Patreon Wall of Fame. And send us some gear. We've already got some Syracuse gear. Shout out to our big Syracuse fan, Jerry Turner, for sending us that helmet. But any other ACC gear that you guys may have, or whoever your team may be, send us some gear to the mailing address down in the description, and we'll have it on display for every single Gridiron Expert video. But Jerry, we appreciate you, all of your support, my man, and as always, go Orange. So let's take a look at Syracuse, guys. This was a team that I think to an extent surprised a handful of people last year, especially with the way they starting the year at 6-0, rising up to number 12 in the country, but that controversial loss to Clemson seemed to just break the Orange. 6-0 start, number 12, then went 1-6 down the stretch. Starting with that Clemson loss, won the season finale over Boston College, and then lost their bowl game to Minnesota. But they have the pieces together to go back to the postseason. That's the ultimate goal, right? It's just to get back to a bowl game. Offensively, they've got a veteran quarterback in Garrett Schrader, who took a major step forward last year as a passer, throwing for over 2,600 yards, 17 touchdowns, completing over 64% of his passes. Also, as we know, a dual-threat quarterback, rushed for over 450 yards and 9 touchdowns. So 26 total touchdowns for Schrader last year. Certainly more of a threat through the air last year than he was in 2021. They do lose their star running back in Sean Tucker. That's a huge loss for the Orange, but LeQuint Allen will sub in for him just fine. Didn't have much playing experience last year, not many stats last year, but should be a solid replacement for Tucker. And obviously they have one of the best tight ends in the country in Oronde Gadsden. 969 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. A guy who plays his game more like a wide receiver than a tight end. He's the number 1 target for Garrett Schrader, the leading wide receiver from last year for Syracuse, and 3 of the top 5 outside of him do return as well. So the offense, one that averaged nearly 28 points per game last year, should, I would say, remain about the same, which is huge for Dino Babers' squad. Defensively, 7 starters are back after giving up 23.1 points per game. Not a bad mark at all. 329 yards per game and only 185 through the air. So that secondary was really, really stingy. But they lose their top 2 players in the secondary. The secondary is going to take a bit of a step back. I think they'd allow probably a little over 200 passing yards per game this year. So a little bit worse, but not horrible. Marlowe Wax does return, though, as the leading tackler from last year at linebacker. 7 of the top 8 tacklers do return from Syracuse from last year. And the defensive line, guys, extremely strong. Arguably the strength of this team. A unit that had 32 sacks last year could see that number actually increase a little bit in 2023. So all in all, guys, 14 starters back for Syracuse. You've got a veteran quarterback. You've got a veteran front 7 on defense. One of the better tight ends in the country. This is the team that, in theory, should get back to the postseason. It's just a matter of whether it's 6 wins, 7 wins. Who knows what it may be. But take a look at their schedule. It is tough. Like, the talent is there for Syracuse, but the schedule does them no favors. And you could easily see this being a scenario where, you know, it's a team in Syracuse that's a lot better than what their final record shows because of just how difficult the schedule is. And we'll probably break it down when we get to that point. But we do think they open the year up 2-0. They'll beat Colgate, which I know my man Jerry, pretty excited for that game for sure. We'll have our eyes on it. But they should beat Colgate. It should beat Western Michigan. So 2-0 just like that. Then they go on the road to Purdue. And that's a tough game, right? Because this is the reigning Big Ten West champions here. You're going to West Lafayette. And last year's game was an absolute thriller. It was an unbelievable finish last year. Syracuse winning 32-29, scoring the game-winning touchdown with 7 seconds left. If you look at Purdue, new coach in Ryan Walters, no star quarterback Aiden O'Connell. They have a new quarterback in Hudson Card, which will be fine coming in from Texas, but how quickly does he gel with new offensive coordinator Graham Harrell and this offense? Purdue, to me, does have a lot of questions. No doubt about it. But the defense for the Boilermakers is going to be the difference maker. That defense under Ryan Walters is going to be salty. They might not be a great team this year, but he's a defensive-minded coach, a guy who had led the #1 scoring defense in the nation last year during his time at Illinois, brings in a lot of transfers to this Purdue program. I think the defense does a good job of shutting down this Syracuse passing attack. I don't know how much success Syracuse is going to have on the ground. Then you go over to the offensive side of the ball. I do have a lot of questions. I have faith in Hudson Card and Graham Harrell. I have more faith, though, in Devin Mockabee as well. Syracuse's issue last year defensively was stopping the run, allowing over 140 rushing yards per game. I think Purdue does a decent job on the ground here. With home field advantage on their side, they get a narrow win over Syracuse. It's a winnable game, no doubt about it. But I do think Purdue snags a minor upset. Syracuse drops to 2-1. But I do think they beat Army in the Carrier Dome. I do think they beat the Black Knights. Interesting concept here. The last time these two teams met was 1996, where number 19 Syracuse, led by Donovan McNabb, beat number 22 Army, who was 9-0 at the time. Undefeated Army, top 25 showdown between Syracuse and Army, and the Orange won 42-17, giving Army their first loss of the year. So, just interesting little history tidbit there. But we do know that, to me, Syracuse is bigger and better up front. They are better on the offensive line. They are better on the defensive line. Army, not going to be a solely triple option team. They're going to take a lot more snaps out of the shotgun. Kind of more of a hybrid type of offense here. And that's actually going to benefit Syracuse a lot. If it's solely the triple option, I'd be a little concerned. But with Army going through some offensive changes, I do think Syracuse is able to snag the win at home to improve to 3-1. And then the schedule gets tough, right? Conference play starts for good, and it's brutal. Look at those first 4 games. Clemson, the heavy favorite, at North Carolina, who played in the ACC Championship last year and has arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the country, arguably the best in the conference. At Florida State, who many project to maybe win the conference, will be right behind Clemson with Jordan Travis and a loaded team that won 10 games last year. The bye week, and then at Virginia Tech on a Thursday night. It is a sin that the fact that Syracuse will play a home game on September 30th and then won't play another home game until November 3rd. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. They will go over a month before Syracuse plays another home game after their Clemson game. So that schedule, again, is brutal. So many road games you don't get to play at home, and the games that you are playing are against some of the better teams in the conference or some of the more hostile environments in the country. So I'll tell you right now, I don't think Syracuse wins any of their next 4 games. I just don't. I don't think they beat Clemson. They have held their own against the Tigers in recent years. 3 of the last 5 against the Tigers decided by 6 or less, including that 27-21 loss last year in Death Valley. Very controversial. Clemson got the benefit of that late hit on the quarterback. Syracuse did not. They led the game 21-10, but then they went to Cade Klubnik, and he ended up leading the comeback for Clemson. Would have completely shaken up the college football world, and Syracuse would have propelled themselves into the top 6. Just couldn't get it done. Didn't get done. Clemson now has Cade Klubnik. They have Garrett Riley. They have Will Shipley. They have Antonio Williams. They have one of the best defenses in the country. I think Syracuse holds their own for a little bit, but Clemson ultimately snags this win. Then they go on the road to North Carolina. UNC is off of a bye week. Syracuse could be facing the Clemson hangover. And we have to keep in mind, too, that Syracuse secondary is going to take a bit of a step back, and that's not ideal when you're facing one of the better quarterbacks in the country. On the road, UNC offensively should do the job here. They beat Syracuse. Syracuse, to me, unfortunately, I don't think stands much of a chance at Florida State. A team they lost to by 35 points last year, 38-3. I think the game's a little bit closer. They don't get beat by 35. But a Florida State team that now returns 17 starters from that squad and has home field advantage in Tallahassee. Not many teams are beating the Seminoles this year. Syracuse drops that game. And then, as we mentioned, their reward for arguably facing the top 3 teams in the conference in 3 consecutive weeks is a bye week, and their reward coming out of the bye week is another road game on a Thursday night in Blacksburg. And we all know those midweek games in Blacksburg are extremely difficult to play in. They're extremely difficult to win if you're the road team. And Virginia Tech is a team, guys, that, isn't great. Last year, 3-8, but they were a lot better than their record showed. Had 3 one-possession losses where they easily could have had 6 wins. Now they have a transfer quarterback in Kyron Drones from Baylor. That's a huge benefit for Brent Pry and his offense, especially with his dual-threat capability. And that defense is not bad at all. Virginia Tech's defense kind of got overlooked by just how bad the team was overall with the record, but the defense wasn't terrible, and they should be even better this time this year. So you look at it now, that strong defense for Virginia Tech going up against the Syracuse offense that's not going to be bad, but may go through some growing pains here and there. You shut down Garrett Schrader, you're going to be just fine. Shut down his dual threat ability, rattle him a little bit, you're going to be just fine. And I think that's what Virginia Tech does. Again, that Blacksburg environment, way too tough to handle. So Syracuse goes from 3-1 to 3-5 entering the month of November. And that's because of just such a brutal stretch there. 3 of those 4, as I mentioned, coming on the road. The month of November, though, is a lot better. Right, the month of November is a lot easier, but still only 2 home games because they play Pittsburgh in the Bronx, so a neutral site game, and then they go at Georgia Tech. So they only have 2 home games against Boston College and Wake Forest. But the month of November, again, when you play Boston College, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, not the biggest powerhouses in the ACC, we should say. I do think they beat Boston College. They beat the Eagles by 9 last year on the road. The season finale kind of snapped that little losing streak there to clinch their 7th win and clinch a winning season. Boston College, it's a winnable game, no doubt about it. They're going to be an improved team with all the injuries they suffered last year, but I still don't have faith in BC coming on the road and beating Syracuse. Syracuse, to me, still is the better team from top to bottom. They have the quarterback edge, they have the wide receiver edge, or just the pass catcher edge, period. And then to me, they own the defensive edge. There's no doubt about it. So all that plus home field advantage. They beat Boston College. They get their 4th win of the year. They played Pittsburgh in the Bronx, where they played each other 100 years ago. And Pittsburgh's one of those teams this year, guys, where it's like they lose a lot on both sides of the ball, but still should be really good. It actually could end up being better than they were on both sides of the ball. Phil Jurkovec comes in at quarterback. The defense is always extremely strong, especially in that front 7. This year is going to be no exception. And it's one of those things where Syracuse has never really thrived against Pat Narduzzi and the Panthers. They've continued to struggle. They've lost 5 straight games to Pittsburgh, and they've lost 9 of the last 10 to the Panthers, including last year's 19-9 loss. And the last 3 games have actually been decided by double digits against the Panthers. So they really haven't been that competitive against Pittsburgh. And this year, neutral site, Pittsburgh, again, as we mentioned, arguably being better than they were last year, having a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, and that stingy defense, maybe shutting down Syracuse. I think Pittsburgh gets the win. Last year, the Orange only had 145 yards of offense against the Panthers. I think they eclipsed like 200, but I don't think they're going to have enough to beat the Panthers. It's one of those things where they haven't really been able to do it. So I definitely can't pick them to do it until I actually see it. They lose to Pittsburgh, which means they have to win their next 2 games to go bowling. If Syracuse wants to reach a bowl game, they've got to win their next 2 over Georgia Tech and Wake Forest. I'm going to tell you right now, I think that's exactly what they do. I think they beat Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, again, is going through some changes with Brent Key, new coach. A lot of transfers coming in on both sides of the ball. How quickly can those transfers gel together? That's always the million-dollar question in this transfer portal era. I look at Brent Key. I think it's a phenomenal coach. I think he did great last year. But Syracuse still, to me, is more experienced on both sides of the ball than what the Yellow Jackets have. They have the coaching edge with Dino Babers. It's a losable game for Syracuse because I do think Georgia Tech's a lot more competitive than we've seen in years past. But Syracuse should get this win. Georgia Tech's offensive line solid, but I like Syracuse's defensive line. Both very experienced units for both teams, just a little bit better. Syracuse and the experience gets the nod over the Yellow Jackets, which means it's a win or go home game against Wake Forest on Senior Day in the Carrier Dome, and I don't see any way that Dino Babers allows his squad to lose this game. They lost to the Demon Deacons last year by 10, 45-35, an absolute shootout, but the Demon Deacons don't have Sam Hartman anymore. They're going to be just fine. They're still going to be a good team. Should be a bowl team under Dave Clawson, but with all the pressure surrounding Syracuse entering this game, with Wake Forest still having some question marks defensively is my biggest concern, I think Syracuse gets the job done. They have to win this game and go bowling, and they will, which the Orange, for us, will finish 6-6 in 2023. And for many, that may be viewed as a disappointment, and I will tell you right now, those winnable games, guys. Virginia Tech, to me, is a winnable game. Purdue is a winnable game. And go ahead and say Pittsburgh, maybe in the Bronx, is a winnable game. There are 3 kind of toss-up games there where maybe Syracuse snacks an extra win to ensure they have another winning season. But I just don't know. That brutal stretch in the middle of the year from September 30th to October 26th is going to kind of be the defining moment. And if they can win 1 or 2 of those games, all bets are off for Syracuse. But I just don't see it happening. But regardless, guys, the Orange will go bowling. They will be back in the postseason. They will have a shot at another winning season, but they will make back-to-back bowls for the first time since 2012 and 2013. And if you're an Orange fan, I think you got to be pleased with that. Got to be pleased with another postseason appearance. After the years of misery following that fantastic 2018 season, back-to-back bowls is nothing to be upset about. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, our Patreon account for exclusive college ball content year-round, and of course, send us some gear to the mailing address down in the description. We'd love to get more teams up here to represent your team and grow our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.